view. I think it's a good thing if we had a regulation where a police officer had to live within the community. I think the communities, you know, when you're living in the center of West Haven or the Allentown section of West Haven or the Shore, and you know up the street a police officer's living, I think you get to know that area, you get to know the area you patrol, and it does help a lot of these issues. As far as the license being somewhere other than wallet, I think that is also a double-edged sword there. I think that when a police officer approaches a car, probably the last thing you should be doing is reaching for anything, because you have to realize the police officer also is nervous walking up to that car. Whether they live in the community or not, it could be the person down the street from you. If you're reaching for anything, that's asking for trouble from a nervous police officer. So I think a smart thing to do is just not reach and you know, stay calm, and I don't think you should be grabbing for your license when the police are walking up to the car. So.
If you don't get it, you're non-compliant.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
If you don't get ID when you're asked for it, then you're in non-compliance. So either I comply
Exactly.
or I don't comply. So which one will save my life?
Right.
I'm talking about when a police officer is walking up to the car.
Right. Well, that's what the question is.
So let's ask one of the police officials. When you're training officers, what would you like to see from a suspect when you flip the lights on, they pull over, you walk up? Do you want to see hands at 10 and 2, out the window?
I'll try that. Mary, I agree with some of your thoughts. Lieutenant Sam Brown from the Haven Police Department did some interview, I think yesterday, with Haven Independent, where this was talked about. I think he did a demonstration. And I think Lieutenant Brown recommended that we educate the public, or recommended the public, about driver's license being in the visor of the vehicle. And while that may not seem practical, because none of us are used to that, I think it's an excellent suggestion. But getting back to the big point, right? What do you expect? What does a police officer expect, right? The driver to do when he or she is stopped? Well, I can tell you what I've done, and it's been a long time since I've been stopped. But no movement. Quite often, a police officer will walk up to a car, and a person makes the assumption, rightly so, that they're going to be asked for their registration, their license, and their insurance card. So most folks, it was in my experience, would start that process inside of the car. That's not the best thing to do, and we've seen that from incidents and from some of these video recordings. What we want people to do is to not move around. And if you are the driver, or you are in the car and you are perceived as the person in charge in the car, even though you may not be driving, you need to take charge and just remind folks in the car, don't move. Because that does make police officers nervous. And why it does is because if people are moving around in the car, the belief of at least most police officers is that you are hiding something. Perhaps you are hiding a gun. And that's where our fear is raised and where it's heightened. And so I would strongly urge the public to remember not to move around in the car as police officers approaching. And then to obey the commands of that officer. If the officer says, put your hands on the steering wheel, put your hands on the steering wheel. It's the best way to survive an encounter, is to obey the police. Now that police officer better be acting within the cover of the law and within the confines of policies and procedures and their training. But that's always our hope, obviously.
Excuse me.